Cool scar. How'd you get it? I like to tell people wild, made-up stories like how I got my throat slit hustling pool in Juarez, or I got too close to info I shouldn't have and the CIA tried to assassinate me by slitting my throat. But in reality it was a lymph node removal surgery gone wrong and a neat 2 inches incision turned into a messy jagged slash. You can hardly see it anymore though, which is good because I ran out of fake stories to tell about it. I have a roughly 1.5 inch long scar on my neck from having my thyroid removed in early 2018, fuck cancer, BTW. It's still visible, but fading more each year, and it almost makes me sad because I like to make up wild reasons as to why I have that scar. Yay. You can pretty much only see mine in really bright light if I tilt my head back. Back when I first got it though, it was super noticeable. My lymph node got wrecked when I had mono a couple decades ago. Finally it swelled up and never unswelled. So ENT decided to just remove it finally. It never really showed up on any scan, so he was expecting it to be small and manageable. Turned out the thing had swelled to the size of a plum and got all up and around behind my jawbone. The jawbone was partially hiding its size from the scans. The scar is a straight line from knee to ankle. I'm 31 now, so it's been on me over 20 years, but it's still very much there. At the time I felt nothing, was told this is because it ripped through all of my nerves, and even was laughing when I hit the water. As I was lifted from the water everyone started screaming. They held my leg together with a towel until the ambulance got there. It does hurt now sometimes. Parts of my shin along the scar are numb or just feel really weird when touched, so I don't like for anyone to touch it. Edit, old pic. Definitely have a bit of a blood phobia, but nothing too wild. Also it's very funny because my dad was a fishing captain and I grew up on the water, but to this day it takes me ages to get on and off boats. I am very cautious. I think the worst part was that my mom wasn't there. She misheard the EMT and thought they said the wound was 6 centimeters long. When she got to the ER I saw all of the color drain out of her face. It became totally white like in a cartoon. She said they meant 6 centimeters deep. It's healed up decently. 2 of the claw marks turned into little circle scars and are more faint now. The middle one is like just under an inch long, and then one turned into a red mark weirdly. This happened about 5 or 6 years ago. My cat eats bugs too. It's adorable and I haven't seen any silverfish since we got her. I found ants on my floor the other day and I put her beside them thinking she would lick them up or something. While I went to go get the broom, I get rid of them by sweeping them into a dustpan and dumping them outside. Instead she just looked at me, meowed, and sat down. Not very useful but still adorable. Not exactly. I had a machete my grandpa gave me that he had in Vietnam when he served over there. Bad idea to give a kid as young as I was a machete, but my parents really didn't care. I was just playing in the grass near the bayou edge and I remember it jumping from the water and latching on. It was about the same size as me and I remember it trying to roll but it couldn't, but I do remember it snapping down and my arm going numb and limp. So I just started slashing and stabbing. I'm guessing it hit it on the head, body, and its leg. Because after I chop off its leg it let go and swam back in the water. I remember there being blood everywhere, both mine and the alligators. I walked into the house and remember blood dripping everywhere and my mom screaming, and everything went black and I woke up in the hospital. I wouldn't call it being a badass. Now that I look back at it, it was kinda badass, but more me being an idiot and not looking for signs of alligator before I started playing on the water's edge. Even more stupid is my mom had warned me of things like that a lot because she's seen it and heard of it happening. Welcome fellow Harry Potter scar brethren. When I was a little kid I would entertain myself by throwing my stuffed animal into the air then catching him. I threw him up and was about to drop him, so I reached up and accidentally scratched my forehead with a fingernail. It's only 1.5 centimeters long or so and you can barely see it now, but it was in the dead center of my forehead and my sister loved to make jokes about it while it was still obvious. Dude, you got to though, especially if your dog is winning. Happened to me once where this old German shepherd with hip dysplasia snapped at my dog and bit his face at the dog park after mine sniffed his ass. Why the owner thought it was smart to bring a dog in this condition to a dog park I'll never understand. Needless to say my dog kicked the shit out of it in about 2 seconds and got on its neck. His poor dog could barely stand normally, let alone fight. I quickly grabbed my dog, but then as I'm pulling him away the shepherd's owner tried to help move my dog from the front and got bit because by this time his dog was turning around to fight back again and they're now snapping at each other and this dude got caught in the crossfire. If he would have grabbed his dog, it would have been a typical dog scuffle at the park. So now this dude is backing away bleeding. I've got my dog by the collar with one hand with my legs around him like I'm riding a horse, all the while fending off his dog with my other hand. A few hand chomps later someone else eventually grabbed his dog. Then this owner had the nerve to try and get my dog kicked out of the park, or worse, as he threatened, because he was on the dog park board. So I had to send them pictures of my dog's puncture wound from that initial bite on his face to prove it wasn't as one-sided as he claimed. It's weird to say, but thank God my dog had a wound on his face. Who knows what would have happened otherwise? Thankfully his dog was fine, no puncture wounds or anything, but this dude made me pay for his bandages and ointment from Walgreens. He tried to get stitches, but the doctor said he didn't need them. God, I hated that guy. He was a real cunt about the whole thing. Dog fights occasionally happen, you just need to know how to safely pull them away from each other. Both dogs were over at 10 seconds after we separated them. My grandpa got one for the same reason. Broke up a fight between two of our dogs. They hated each other until the day both of them died. One of them got their canine tooth in his arm and wouldn't let go. It was so deep. He refused to go to the ER. Instead, my mom treated the wound while he drank whiskey. This man served in the Navy, so I'm not surprised the whole time that my mom putting shit on it, he was just laughing. Apparently flesh was legit coming out of the wound, all stringy. It apparently didn't hurt until the next day. Knowing him, he probably didn't take one day off work. More info. Don't go near a barking dog that is clearly a stranger's dog and it's probably chained up for a reason. I had a dog bite my hand and it hurt like a motherfucker. It wasn't a bad injury, but it is now why I don't go anywhere near big strange dogs that are barking. I don't have any scars except for the memory. Cycling down the road at 67 kmph and then a taxi driver had to open his door suddenly and bam, I totaled his door and got a deep scar on my chin. A few years ago though, but then on my way back home after the accident the derailleur was acting up. I looked towards it for a few seconds and then I ran over a dog and well in return. A friend and I got drunk and decided to see who was tougher. We put our forearms side by side on the table and dropped a lit cigarette in the valley between them. So it was laying against both of us and the first one to move lost. We didn't. The cigarette finally went out and we have really cool matching stupidity badges. Walking a horse over some barbed wire that was laying on the ground. He went nuts when it touched his leg. He was a little psychotic, and rather than shaking it off he took off running, pulling the barbed wire up and ripping a 6-inch gash across my back. Then I had to walk that crazy fucker home, bleeding all over myself. Middle school track. Yes. Track. Did the high jump and it was pretty standard to have 3 landing pads side by side vertically. Well, one school had just one placed sideways. On my practice jumps I kept saying I was going to fall off the back. So they nudged it over a few inches. Well, on my first official jump, I flew right over the mat and landed head first on the giant cinder block they used to keep it in place. Split the back of my head open, blood absolutely everywhere. Looked like a murder scene. Got up, walked over to my coaches just as my dad, who just got to the meet after work, walks up. 5 stitches in the back of my head. 25 years later, still a big scar back there. Slipped on a polished wooden floor while doing housework. Punctured my femoral artery and nearly bled to death, except I knew how to apply a compress and keep it in place while I waited for 911. They made a graft out of some nearby venous tissue. Jagged 18 scar on my thigh that I'm actually kind of proud of. Most people don't survive that sort of thing. Beware of housework. I'm a bald/bearded guy with a scar on my head that looks kinda badass. It's not. I got it when I was 3. My dad told me not to sit on the edge of the couch next to the fireplace. I was a little too overconfident in my ability to not fall. Had to get Staples frown. I was jumping on the bed and a spring popped out the side of the mattress and I fell down and it nicked my eyebrow, so now I got a pretty large slit through my eyebrow. A bit long, but it's interesting. 17 years old in 2009. Was out in my city watching the annual Navy exercises at the beach, and I'm standing on the rocks to get a better view when my leg slipped and I stumbled. Felt a slight sting and didn't mind it. Watched the whole show, and decided to walk the 4 kilometers, 2.4 miles, home. When I got home, I felt like peeing, and when I was in the bathroom, I heard my aunt exclaim, "Where's all this blood from?" I come out, and she exclaims again and points to my right leg. I look down and sure enough, it was bleeding. Not only to that, there's a trail of blood drops leading from the front door into the bathroom, but I didn't even notice since I was thinking about something. She tells me she's taking me to the hospital, and when we open the door, we see said trail of blood leading into the hallway to the elevator, in the elevator and leading onto the road. My dad, who's downstairs, sees the blood and then me and comes with me to the hospital, clamping a cloth over my 2-inch deep gash. The doctor looks at the wound, then says that there's something stuck inside. And takes a pair of forceps and pulls out a roughly 3 centimeters rock that was stuck inside the gash. And then it happens. Blood starts to flow strong and freely from the gash onto the table and floor below, and they clamp it shut while the doctor stitches it up. 5 stitches, asks me to wait for 10 minutes while he checks something. Tells us later that the gash was just an inch away from my femoral artery. 1 more inch, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. Scar is still there, still go ahead and climb on rocks at the beach 12 years later. Got bitten by a puppy and a horse, ran into a wall, broke a small window, hit a different one with my back, and all the others come from a strange obsession with razor blades and box cutters.